hoop at GCU, man. We hoop at GCU.
Lopes fans, welcome in. My name is Brennan Williams, and this is Go Lopes Radio. And today, I'm excited to unveil our new series, Behind the Program, where I'm taking a deeper dive into GCU men's basketball and the people that do the little things behind the scenes. If you're a GCU fan, you're very familiar with the success they've had in recent years. 4 out of the last 5 NCAA tournaments. They've won a ton of games, and there's been plenty of iconic moments along the way. But during the offseason, there's plenty of hard work that gets put in, and I'm here to highlight some of those people and specifically their craft. So today's episode, I talk with GCU assistant coach Marc Rodgers. He helps paint a picture of how this staff goes about building their roster in modern college basketball, the challenges, but also the joys of getting to know and develop the players. We also talk about the process of guys improving their games in the offseason, how the staff works with them on that. At the end of the episode, he's going to actually give us a coach's look at a few of the players they brought in this offseason, what they do well, and a few of the things he's really, really excited about. This is a really great and I think really candid conversation with the coach who's been a key part of the program's success the last few years. And so a massive thank you to Marc for his time. With that being said, let's head over to that conversation with GCU assistant coach Marc Rodgers. Hey guys, I'm here with GCU assistant coach Marc Rodgers today. Marc, how we doing?
I'm good. How you doing today?
Good. Excited to be here. We got a lot to get into. Obviously, I was calling you the busiest man in college basketball this summer, so we got a lot to get to on that front. But before we get there, we need to kind of get to know you a little better. So I know you grew up in Southern California. You can tell us a little bit about that, and then I know you played some college ball. So take us there. What was that like?
Yeah, from Los Angeles, California. Went to a few different schools in high school, but went to Sarah High School for 3 years. That was probably what I'll call home. In Gardena, football powerhouse, known for like football players like Robert Woods, Marquise Lee. But played basketball there. Moved to Washington, I think, my freshman year of college. Lived in Seattle for a year. Lived in Ellensburg for 4. Moved back to Seattle, Renton for another year. So spent a lot of time in the Pacific Northwest, and then started kind of getting my coaching journey after that, to be honest.
When did you know, or maybe was there a coach you had like a relationship with? You're like, man, I think coaching actually would be awesome. When did that happen for you?
I think when I was a kid, I think I had an ability to kind of understand my coaches better than some of my teammates. I think I kind of was able to articulate things a little bit better than some of the guys I play with. Doesn't mean I was better than them, but at all. But I was able to kind of understand my coaches' perspective a little bit better. And then my junior year, going into my junior year of college, I blew my knee out, tore my ACL my junior year. And I think my assistant coach pretty much just gave me all grunt coaching duties. I think
Sure.
I was doing laundry, doing film, doing scouting stuff. Just he was trying to keep me busy so I didn't just sit on dead time in the small town I was in. And I think that year is when I kind of realized, like, this ball is about to stop bouncing. You got to find something else. And I'm pretty close with the basketball community back home in California, so I knew I'd have a chance to make an impact right away, and kind of took off from there, to be honest.
Yeah, I think some Lopes fans would say you're pretty well connected in Southern California as well. We're going to get into that later, but would you say maybe there was some perspective you gained? You were telling me about the injury. There was a lot of work that went into it. Was that maybe I was thinking I'm going to play basketball for the rest of my life, you mentioned. Was there like perspective you gained from that, and what did you learn?
Yeah, I grew up in a pretty competitive family from a sports standpoint. My dad played football at USC. Like I told you, my cousin played football on the Seahawks. I've got family that played mostly football, but family that played all type of sports. So I've seen injuries kind of derail people earlier than they wanted to, and that time where you don't know what you're going to do next after sports is a little bit tough. So I think seeing that and watching them kind of evolutionize from player to just person again, I think I kind of watched that phase in front of me for a few times. So when it was my turn, it was a little bit easier for me. But I definitely think that year tearing my ACL just kind of reminded me that, you're 21 years old now, 6-foot guard coming off 2 ACLs, like you're not exactly going to be everybody's favorite choice. So I figured it out quick. It wasn't easy, but like I said, I was blessed to grow up in a basketball and a sports community where it was easy for me to adapt.
Yeah, kind of found that next vehicle for yourself. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. I hate to kind of put you on the spot here. One thing I've noticed about you, having followed the program and then also being a fan, the guys really respond to you well on the bench. We've also seen, the video that happened at the end of the year with all the guys that left the program. You're a little emotional on that. And you had some really cool moments with guys after the WAC championship game. So I'm curious for you, where does that come from you? Because you seem to really connect with players. And then for you, is that, hey, this is the only way I know how to coach. Like, this is the only option.
Right. Well, I mean, first, I was blessed to work for a coach who allows me to be as connected with the guys as I am. Coach Drew lets me put my hands around these guys, and I'm pretty hands-on with them in terms of emotionally and physically helping them develop. But I think for me, being close to them in age, I just turned 30 about a month or two ago. Some of these guys, are 21, 22, 23, Gabe McLaughlin, 24,
Yeah.
right? So we're not that far in age at times. And, you get a little bit more from people who connect with you, and I think that that's one of my gifts. I would say I'm not great at a lot of things. Trust me, I'm far off in plenty of different aspects of coaching, but I think one of my strengths is that I'm pretty good at connecting to guys. I can relate to people pretty well. I've endured experience or know someone who has experienced a lot of things, so I'm pretty relatable, I would say.
Yeah.
So I think I'm able to bring that to the guys, and then, we do a great job as a staff is bringing in the right guys and the right character usually. So
Sure.
connecting with these guys and helping them on a path that they chose to be on is pretty much my calling, I think.
Yeah, you mentioned you're a few years older than him, but you also just talked about the perspective you had as a player. So you're close enough where you can kind of talk in a real sense to them and give them real example. That's interesting. So, yeah, definitely something I've caught on, and something, I've always even seen on the bench, just the way the guys respond to you. If it's a tougher moment, and you can almost even just, I feel like I've noticed you just look at guys and they're like, okay, like there's a connection there. So I think that's really, really awesome.
Appreciate that.
Okay, let's dive into, as part of this Behind the Program series, we're trying to get into some people who do a lot of behind-the-scenes work that we don't see. For you, I know you're involved in recruiting. So we just talked about some of the relationships. We are in this new era of college sports that constantly tells us, go to a different place, come in and come out. We've seen like Ben Simmons famously, was at LSU for like 3 months and then was out and almost like he was never there. So for you, how is it to continue to develop those relationships in this time where maybe everything's telling us maybe the exact opposite at times?
Yeah, I think for us as a program, the alignment shows based on the championships won in the past that we have done a pretty good job of retaining guys and also welcoming new portal transfers with an open door, right? And I think this environment that we have at GCU has kind of adapted well with the times that we're in. I think we're very suitable to build guys in this program for 2, 3, 4 years and help them develop as players, as well as we can adapt to getting a guy like a Tyon Grant Foster or whoever else and bring them in for a year or 2 years and teach them how to win as they apply their skills to our team and our foundation. And I think for me, it's just being true to the program, being true to the foundation Coach Drew set. I mean, our morals as a program, what we stand for doesn't change no matter who's in these seats, no matter who's in that locker room. And then for me, I'm the same guy, whether the kid is a freshman, whether he's a senior, whether he's a sophomore, and I think the rest of the staff is as well. We treat you with respect, but we know we have a job to do as well as they do. So, we try to stay in line with that. And the relationship aspect from a recruiting standpoint is just be who you were when I recruited you, and I'll be who I was when I recruited you.
Interesting.
That makes sense.
No, that's really good.
All right.
Dang, that was good. I like that.
Appreciate that.
Okay, let's go to the start of the process, because for me, this is where I'm like so confused. I'm obviously sitting here trying to monitor everything on Twitter, which conversation for another day, right? Guys are entering the portal. There's thousands of names. How do you guys start this process? I know the tough loss, Maryland, and unfortunately you face this reality of your work kind of begins right away. As a fan, I have this idea you guys are like in a war room, and it's crazy, and your Bryce is up there and you're watching video. How the heck do you even start the process when there's thousands of players in the portal?
I think I'd be lying to you if I told you a direct formula. I think every situation, every summer or spring, I should say, is different. I would just say trying to stay up to date and stay in the know. I think it requires a lot of times, a lot of our staff is up later than the average human. I think we're up earlier than the average person as well, because any hour you sleep or you miss, you might miss out on an opportunity and get ahead.
Sure.
When these guys go in the portal, you have a small window of time to find a way to sell your university and the opportunity you have for them as players. So I think that we just get ahead of schedule the best we can, obviously within the rules and within the boundaries that we're set, but we just try to stay ahead. I try to keep my eye on every situation possible, and then we align what fits our program and from a basketball standpoint and from a character standpoint, and then you you pray to God that it lands,
Yeah.
and you fight for that kid, and you hope that we have a great university with a lot of support, a great president, great athletic director, great fans. We've won a lot of games, God willing, and hopefully we continue to do so. So a lot of these things are an easy thing to present to a kid. It's just being able to present them versus the other 50 schools that are selling them the same product, right? So, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. GCU isn't for everybody. Everybody isn't for GCU.
Sure.
But I think for the right guys, we've been lucky enough to get them, and hopefully we continue to do so.
So when you're a basketball guy, obviously having played, you said you feel like you do see the game obviously super well. How do you, when you're looking at film of a player, are you saying, okay, this guy brings X, Y, Z to the table, so we know we get that? And then are you doing any sort of like projecting of, wow, if we could get him in our system, we could maybe do this? Or how are you watching the film to say that's a guy that we want to bring in or we want to talk to?
Yeah, I think Coach Drew's done a really good job of helping guys exercise their talent and showcasing it. I think he lets guys play a little bit more than some coaches might allow, but as the season prolongs and we get to February, March, you start to see guys like Luke Ward blossom or Caleb Shaw in the second half of the season start to come about. And, Makai's growing from what he was at one point to just being a complete scorer to where now he is a full-time point guard. And I think Coach Drew does a good job of developing these guys. So, as the portal comes about, and, we have a great staff who really watches the statistics and the analytics of things, and we turn on the film and we apply the system and their pace and their strength to how we coach and how Coach Drew likes to coach and who we think can handle what comes with this, because there is pressure here. There is no secret. We apply pressure because we want to win, and that comes with a price. And I think, finding the guys who can handle the pressure that comes with it as well as handling the strenuous work we put in to help win these games, I think it's a crapshoot at times, but you hopefully that your eyes don't trick you and you find a way.
So being at a university, obviously GCU is very well known for being willing to invest. I guess maybe even doing things different. That's not just athletics, right? That's from a university standpoint. You said it. They set expectations, but they will invest as much as they can and help. We're talking facilities. We're talking the arena. We're talking everything that goes into it. Doing whatever they can to, continue to generate fans. So you're mentioning this, is there like a confidence that comes with that where you're a coach and you're saying, okay, I know, and I guess maybe every program, quote, says that, but it does feel like GCU really does that. Does that give you a confidence as you're out on that recruiting trail, knowing you've got the backing and the facilities, everything behind you as you head out?
Yeah, I mean, I could speak for me personally. Like, GCU is amazing for me. I love GCU. I think it's better than any other university in America. I think we have the resources from a financial standpoint. The facilities are high level, and then not even just from a financial or a facility standpoint. I think the people that these guys that we bring in come across, like the Josh Hausers and the Bryce Wheeler. These are people who are players then consider family themselves.
Yeah.
So, I'm never surprised when I see Bryce Wheeler sitting on the plane with one of our players, and little does he know that's helping us out because that kid now has somebody else within our family that he's connected to. So I think just the environment for GCU makes it easy. I'm not going to say make it easy, but it makes it a lot easier in general. I think the president being able to come by, Mr. Colangelo being able to come by and see these guys, they're very connected. And I think when the supporters there and you see the physical care from people across campus, people who really invested, it makes the job definitely a lot easier.
Yeah. Okay, so we know roster building. We've seen this throughout sports time and time again. Since I've been following sports, you can fill a roster with a ton of talent, and that is never guaranteed to work. We know that. So your job, obviously post-house settlement with 15 roster spots, is to obviously acquire a ton of talent, but you also have to keep in mind those, other things, maybe off the court, the culture. You said you guys have a standard that you have to uphold. How do you balance those things of bringing in as much talent as possible? You want competition. You especially look at a roster this year, a lot of depth, a lot of competition, but you have to keep in mind we have to build a cohesive roster. You're going to have 5 guys out there at the end of a game, and those guys have to work together. How do you balance those two kind of important ideas?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I've never thought about that. I would say there's probably, a subject of 3 levels that you would probably go through to try to keep everything in order. I think first it starts with the foundation, right? Like, what does our program stand on? We are a faith-based program. We care about Christ before anything. We care about our teammates, and then we care about winning. That's kind of the culture that was set before I even got here. And, Coach Drew's allowed me and taught me how to keep my foot down when it comes to those things. And then the second part I would say is, from a basketball standpoint, does your talent fit within the way we play, right? Like, there's certain guys who might be able to make 250 threes on the season at a 50% clip, right? But if they're shot selection or the way they shoot or their athleticism doesn't match the other 4 guys that we might put them out on the floor
or if
with.
They're resting on the other end so
Right,
that they
right.
have their legs to shoot.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We might not be able to have that kid on our team because whether he's a good player or not, he might not be the greatest for us. And so I think we've been able to take guys, I keep bringing in Luke Ward's name because he's a prime example, or Colin Moore, guys who were at, Luke didn't play much at Oregon, which is a Power 5 school. Or you have Colin Moore who, played a pretty good role at a smaller school in Georgia State, but he comes in. I think we've done a good job of being able to identify what fits. It's not based on what exactly you did at your last school or how much you haven't done at the previous school. It's more based on our eyes and our feedback and the intel we get. And, a lot of it is just being frank, is faith, hoping, praying God that you recruit kids the right way and you do the right vetting, and you hope that it lands and these kids buy into the culture we set. And then whoever doesn't, hopefully they come around. And if they don't, then it tends to, go how it goes.
Yeah. And team building is hard, but I think kind of to some of the things you've said, when you have those other things off the court, they can almost fill in those gaps, like those awkward gaps of like, oh, I'm competing against this guy. I don't like this guy. It's like, no, that's not how this works. Right. I think that can sometimes be natural, but I think, like you said, if you have the standard for character and loving your teammates, there's kind of that desire to be better, not necessarily kind of being a part of one team.
Right.
So
and like I said, this was, my first year we had Gabe McLaughlin and Javon Blackshear. Yep. And I watched Gabe put himself to the side for guys like Luke Ward or Isaiah Shaw to grow. Yeah. He cared about them. I watched Javon Blackshear take the time to make sure that Rayshawn Harrison was who he needed to be so we can beat a St. Mary's or win a WAC championship. And then you fast forward to this season, I watched Rayshawn put Mekhi Williams in the back of his pocket and say, I'll take care of this. And I watched Jacoby Coles come in and learn from Luke Ward. Even though Luke Ward was technically the backup 4-man, Luke did everything he could to make sure Jacoby ends up being WAC tournament MVP, right? So I think the culture is set, and I think Coach Drew, like I said, he does an amazing job of setting that in line to where there are certain things we don't have to question. Like, we have Chris Elliott and Jordan Jackson who, those guys get a lot of mental therapy and get a lot of things cleared through those guys. So by the time we get them for practice, we don't even have to worry about it, which is why I say I love GCU, because the nest we have is pretty tight, and we can pretty much all rely on each other. Yeah.
One guy I want to talk about a little bit was Javon Blackshear, because as part of the podcast I did talking about that WAC title game against UT Arlington, that was crazy story for another day. We don't need to get back into that. I was rewatching the game, and you notice Javon at that point had come back from injury, and you notice him. I don't think he scored a ton, but rewatching the game, I couldn't believe all of the things he was doing. And this was a guy who I think the year before was the WAC preseason player of the year, had all these accolades. He's obviously a hometown hero. Mm-hmm. He has every reason to say, hey, I'm back. Give me the ball. I need to get my shots up. Yet, I don't know. I guess talk about him a little bit, and maybe he seems at almost an overlap of all these kind of different sort of times or these rosters. He seems like he always mixed the drinks so well.
Yeah. It's a little bit personal for me with Javon. So Javon was the first kid I've ever coached. So when Javon was playing AAU, that was the first time I got into coaching out of college. So fast forward, I ended up coming here to GCU. I ended up coaching him again. Javon is, in my opinion, the ideal program guy. Javon came in as a freshman with the old staff. He had a really good freshman year. He stays loyal to GCU and this campus and being a Phoenix kid. Yep. And he goes on a run where we win however many championships we've won since he's been here. And I watched that kid kind of evolve as a human, not just as a basketball player. Javon's whole outlook on life changed a lot towards his senior year. Javon's leadership grew. And as we go into those big games, his last year here before he transferred, if you go look at the game against Seattle U in the WAC semifinals, Javon hit 2 big threes in the second half that I don't know how that game goes if he doesn't make
Sure.
it. Javon goes, if we go in the UT Arlington game, we don't, like you said, we don't need to go back to that, but that game was as physical and as rugged as it gets, right? And to have that little guy out there kind of being our pit bull to come in and just kind of set the tone. And then you go into the game against St. Mary's or Alabama, where if you go look at that game against Alabama, even though we didn't win, Javon did a great job on Sears at the height he is, right? Because he stayed ready and he'd been through so many different dogfights and battles over the years that the moment wasn't too big for him. So, as a GCU employee and as somebody who's just a fan of GCU's program before I even worked here, Javon is a staple to this program. And when we go city to city, state to state, whether it's for games or whether it's to recruit, everyone knows Noon Ahead, right? Everybody, Javon is one of the staples of this program, and I hope his name is remembered here forever because that kid, when I say he cared about GCU, he cares about it. He still, last season, was at another school. He's calling us and texting me during games and after games. Tell Ray to shoot the ball, or tell Tyon he's not rebounding, so he cares, and he still cares to this day. So, I'm biased, but I'm a Javon Blackshear fan. So I'm definitely happy to have coached him.
Yeah, one thing with him that's interesting is if you sit him down, he's not like a guy that has like the loudest voice, but when he's in the room or he's on the court, everyone's looking to him, which I think says a lot about just kind of the person he is. But a cool little Javon aside. That was fun, conversation there.
Good guy.
We're going to now, kind of come off recruiting, roster building. We're going to dive into player development. And that was one of the main things that I wanted to do for the series because, we've seen guys so often come, they're one player 1 year and they're at such a developmental point of their life and they come back the next year and they're almost this like different player. So, I have an example I want to use. We'll use Colin Moore, I think, at a later point for just mentioning names. We know Colin's obviously out of school, but how do you approach that? Are you sitting down with a player at the end of the season and saying, these are some things we want to work on? Or is a player coming with feedback? How does that process start?
Again, I go back to my boss, our head coach, and I go back to the other coaches I work with. I think, Coach Shaw, we had Coach Lindsay, Coach Prudhomme, Coach Schill, Coach Walk. Like, these are people who really study. Like, we were really obsessors when it came to our players and what they need. So I think, having a group of guys who are just completely zeroed in on fixing and fine-tuning flaws within our players to make sure that our team is equipped to go win the games we need to. It all starts there. Coach Drew has a very distinct way that he likes to coach, and as the more I've grown to be around him and the more time spent, I'm learning the true genius within him. And as well as when Coach Lindsay was here, and even the new guys we got, Cam and Coach Morrell and Jordan McCabe and Coach Robo, who's seen so many players, and Coach Loddick, who was, one of the better players in the Pac-12 when the Pac-12 was a great league. I just think we take the time to really study. The film never lies. The numbers definitely make up for whatever lies the film might. So if you read between the two, you should be able to find something. Now, obviously, the players, they still deserve all the credit. They put in the work. They make the shots. They take the time. But we definitely try to go out of our way to help guys reach the dreams and maximize the goals that they told us they wanted before they got here. And we've been lucky to have a good clientele list of guys who buy in right away. Yeah,
we talked earlier about just the character and little things. I mean, I'm guessing could be a weird conversation. Hey, we need you to work on X, Y, Z. And if you're, a 20-year-old, it's like, wait, what? I don't know. Oh, man, I'm just hanging out, having a good time. So I think you're right in finding those right people where you're going to have those hard conversations. And then the second part you mentioned is kind of that sweat equity in the summer. Let's use a guy like Colin Moore, for example. He, I think, improved his three-point percentage about 8% year over year in his 2 years here. And I would imagine that's not as simple as just, showing up, putting a few shots in the morning, going back home and resting. Give us an idea, I think, if as fans, the amount of work that goes in to see something. I mean, 8% is massive. Give us an idea of just the amount of work in the summer that we don't see.
I think we put a lot of time in terms of the skill of the game during practice and a little bit before and after. We have the time that allows. But just having guys who take into what we teach, right? So if I see Colin Moore, who struggled from the three-point shot from the corner his first year here, there are certain drills that I've seen work with guys who played in the NBA, guys who were all-stars, guys who were elite college players, guys who were, amazing players in Europe, right? If these drills work for them, they probably will work for you.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's not the hardest math in the world. And just having guys buy into that. And as far as the workload, I mean, it's profusive. Like, we'd all be misleading ourselves if we say this isn't the closest thing to professional sports as it gets.
Yeah.
So this has became a job for everyone. And the players know it too. They have things and goals that they want to accomplish and milestones that they want to reach, and, financial balances that come with improvement and development.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we've been able to find guys who are hungry for that. So the time, I can't really say how much time is, where do you want to be? Because if it's as high as you say, there is no really time limit, right?
Yeah.
We're never good enough. There's things that I do all the time when it comes to coaching where I'm like, I could have spent that hour doing this or spent that 2 hours doing that. So it's just the level of player you want to be, I think, in terms of a time and workload. But we have been blessed with guys who, like I said, are obsessed. Colin Moore is an obsessor. I don't think people understand because of how much character he plays with and how much chaos he brings to the floor. At times It might look a little bit deranged or like his mind is spinning, but in reality he's playing so hard and he's watched so much film and he's taken so many shots the night before the game that he's almost too intense. And with that comes the big games like the threes against St. Mary's that he makes and the however many points he had against Western Kentucky or St. Louis. He prepared himself for these moments. So like I said, the credit goes to the guys. They put the time in. We're just here to apply the blueprint and hopefully they follow sticking to it.
I got to imagine player Mark watches Colin Moore play defense and you're like, I don't miss playing basketball at all.
Yeah,
on-ball defense, I'm sure.
The pride and ego in me wants to say that it would be no problem, but a 6'4" guy with that wingspan harassing you all game, who cares about winning more than anybody else on the floor. And there's not too many guards in America that want to deal with that too much. So no, I prefer to call a screen and get a switch, but
and then just throw the ball at him at the end of the day.
That's the cheat for sure.
Okay, let's dive into a question just team-wise. Obviously, you guys, the NCAA has kind of a unique schedule for you guys in the summer. So what are your kind of, from a macro perspective, what are your goals for your time you get together? Because this year's a little different where you have almost, not a brand new roster. I think you guys have 6 returners, something around there. Outside of that, a ton of new guys. What are you trying to accomplish in your guys' time together as a unit?
I think applying our foundation, I know I keep going back to that word, but it's the staple for everything. I think applying our foundation right away and kind of letting them know this is home base. Like, no matter what else is going on, like, these things, these are what we believe in. These boundaries cannot be crossed, and these requirements must be met, whether that's an effort standpoint, whether that's a character standpoint, whether that's a mental focus standpoint, right? There's things that we do not allow anybody to come out the box on, right? So I think applying that, and then also they're learning us as a staff and we're learning them as players. So, coming together as a group and figuring each other out, because this is a collective group. Like, I am no good of a coach if Rayshawn Harrison isn't a good player. Gabe McLaughlin probably isn't as good of a player as he is if Casey Shaw isn't up in the morning watching film with him and showing him how to correct his shot. This is a collective group effort, and I think just showing these guys that everyone here is working. This is an ongoing wheel for everyone. There is no, whether it's the 15th man on the roster or the walk-on or the medical trainer or the fifth is whatever number assistant, like, we're all working and we have a goal in mind. And if one person falls off, we all fall off. So I think just trying to apply that mentality to everyone new that's coming in who might not have seen that at the previous place they were. And then, just coming together. We've won a lot of games in the years I've been here. And I've watched Coach Drew do a really good job of just winning games by the togetherness and the collective group. We can't win them all. There's some we wish we could get back. But I think in general we've won a great amount of games because we do a really good job of bringing guys together and coming together as a group with our foundation being the centerpiece. And I think that has carried into everything. So I would say in the offseason, just applying that and then letting the schematics be what they are.
Yeah, figure that out as
right
kind of things. You start, again, we're kind of back to that same conversation.
Right.
I think we talked about the recruiting. So, okay, let's end with this question. We'll get you out of here. I need a specific skill from a specific guy, and you can give us one, you can give us a few if you want. You watched some film, you knew kind of a guy could do this. You're seeing a guy in person, you're going, whoa, that is either way better or something that I wasn't even prepared for. That is a really special skill a player has. What can Lopes fans give us a little tease?
This might be long-winded, but I don't want to just pick one person out of fairness to all these guys because they've all done things this summer that have really impressed us. So if I go down the line, I'd start with the returners. I think Mekhi Williams, his leadership this summer has been impressive. I think Mekhi has really invested into GCU as a university as a whole. I mean, I see him at baseball games, softball games. I see him doing certain events around campus. I think incorporating these new guys around campus, I think Mekhi's leadership and toughness has grown. I mean, I think if I look back in our WAC championship game against Utah Valley, that game was pretty scrappy, and I think people saw a fight out of Mekhi.
Sure.
That early in the year, he might have seen – he's young, right? Mm-hmm. So I think you might have saw some times where he would get down because, he's so talented that when things weren't clicking, he wouldn't always be able to hold it. Where if you go look at the WAC championship game, I actually just watched it the other day. There were loose balls and 50-50 plays that he was just – at one point, one of the meanest players on the floor, and I think he's applying that to this group. So I want to give credit to Mekhi on that.
And that's something to his credit. There were games where, and he even was in a few pressers where he said, I think he had a few games where 2 or 3 where he turned the ball over 4 or 5 times. He just said, I did that. I don't know. Like I got to learn, and to his credit, it seems like he's.
Right, and credit to Rayshawn for that. I think Rayshawn taught Mekhi that you live to fight another day. I think Mekhi was pretty – every play mattered, every game mattered, every possession mattered. And I think Rayshawn, that was one thing. Rayshawn, he's a quiet leader, doesn't say much, but when he in privacy with Mekhi, based on the conversations I've heard, he's helped him understand that it's another day. But sorry about that, not to get off deck, but to go down the line, Dennis Evans. Dennis is healthy. Dennis is, I don't know how many pounds stronger. He's about 25 pounds stronger. Coach Jordan, Jackson, and Chris have done an amazing job getting Dennis back on track. His shot blocking is really impressive, and his ability to catch and shoot around 15 to 17 feet is it's repetitive. He hits 2, 3, 4 in a row. So, we're looking forward to him. Dennis coming back. Caleb Shaw's been out, obviously, as people know, but he's been fine. Caleb finished the season so well. The work he puts in, even as a guy who's hurt right now coming off of rehab, he's putting in more time than probably 90% of kids who are completely healthy.
Yeah.
So Caleb's there. New guys coming in. Nana is a fierce competitor and a winner. I think that's what he's done things shooting the ball. He's rebounded. But I think his competitiveness has impressed me the most. He hates losing.
Yeah.
He at that 4-man spot, I think that's something that we can really appreciate because we've had really good fours the past few years, and getting another one who is really mean. He's very different than Gabe, very different than Jacoby. They all have their own identities, but he has the competitive spirit that will pay off every night, I think. So that's where Nana has impressed me. Dusty Stromer, Dusty's a local kid. I've known Dusty for a while, but I think what will surprise people the most, and I think has surprised people around here, which I knew he was capable of, he's coming from a really, really good program in Gonzaga. And Dusty was
a good high school program.
Good high school program in Notre Dame. And Dusty was a good defender going into college, but I think being in Gonzaga's system and having to guard those high-level players at practice and all those high-level games. Sink
or swim.
His defensive ability is impressive, and I'm really happy to see him buy into that. I think the one thing he's shown us since he's been here is that he's willing and dying to play defense and get stops, and I think that's a big deal because you see Dusty's got the hair flowing, he's got nice shoes, and he's got a really nice sweet stroke. You wouldn't.
We all remember him from when he blew up that one summer.
You wouldn't expect Dusty to be as gritty as he is defensively, but he gets after it. We've got Brian Moore. Brian Moore's quickness is second to none. I think having a very, very confident older, I call him a senior citizen, but a very older guard who's quick, who knows what they want. He's very defined in what he's looking for and who he is as a player. He knows. Some guys are still trying to find their identity. Brian's had enough time to really learn who he is. He's very confident in that. And he actually has been one of the few guys who I think have came in and he came here for the culture. Like Brian is very much invested into this winning program, this hard working mentality, this yes, we have nice bells and whistles, but we still work like we have nothing. Brian is very much the epitome of that, so I'm very happy with him on that. Jaden Henley is as good of a ball handler as I've seen as somebody at his size.
Yeah.
He has
6'7"?
6'7".
Yeah, lengthy.
He's bigger. He's athletic. His ability to jump off of his right leg is second to none. But his ball handling ability and ability to play make at his size, I think, and seeing how his body is changing with Coach Jackson in such a small window, I mean, I don't think he's went home. I think he's here working regardless during our little time off. So I think for Jaden, his playmaking ability at his size will be very, very beneficial for us because we haven't had a bigger playmaker besides Colin Moore in a while. So having that back with Jaden Henley will be a very big deal. Who else? What other new guys am I thinking? I'm not trying to forget anybody. We got Jack Sawyer. Jack Sawyer is my favorite. I'm sorry. Then I could just put this out. Caleb Shaw, time has moved on.
You're out.
Jack Sawyer is my favorite kid on the team. I love Jack. Jack reminds me a lot of Isaiah Shaw.
Okay.
Isaiah Shaw was a lot grittier than people knew. Isaiah was a lot more competitive than people knew, and Isaiah was a better player than people always got to see at times.
Mm-hmm.
And Jack Sawyer is no different. He's came in, he's fit in. He's my favorite kid on the team. He doesn't say too much, but I love Jack. And then we got the new guys coming in, but I would say for the majority of the new guys, Caleb Smith. Caleb Smith reminds me of someone. I don't want to say any names because people are going to blow it out of the deal. But Caleb Smith reminds me of one of these guys that we had that came in that really blossomed, and you saw something. We see something out of him that I don't know if everybody in the portal did.
Yeah.
His ability to shoot the ball for how tall he is. I've known Caleb since he was in high school. I recruited Caleb. He was a 6'5", overweight 5-man. And to where now he's 6'10", he's thinned out. He's really
skilled. I still don't think he got on any of the recruiting. Like, he had the profile, didn't have a picture. His name was just there. So it's crazy. He seemed maybe overlooked out of high school.
And he's I really hope Caleb gets everything out of GCU that I envision for him because he really wanted to come here. He really likes this place. He really wants to do well here. I think the fans will enjoy someone who takes ownership and pride in wanting to be a great player at GCU. I think that's one thing that I can appreciate working for Coach Drew, and that's been built before I got here, and it's obviously grown since I've been here with the championships we've won. But finding guys who really care for that name on the front of that jersey, like Makai and Caleb Shaw. Caleb Smith is a lot like that. And like I said about Brian Moore, I think those guys are going to come in, and it's going to be hard for those guys to let these fans down on this home floor and not give it every bit they got. And that's what I see from Caleb Smith. I mean, he really wants to be here. So I think for me as a coach who really wants to be here and wanted to be here, I didn't really, no other opportunities really fit me better than GCU. I think these kids are realizing the same thing. I think it's no different than Coach Drew or anybody else who works on campus. Like this, if it's for you, it's for you. And I think for Caleb Smith, I think I've seen that he very much wants to impress this place and show what he can do and fight for that GCU jersey. So
6'10", is he like
about
a legit
6'10". Caleb is not small. Caleb is a big boy, and as he keeps working with Coach Jackson and Coach Chris, like I said, I think our medical team and our strength and conditioning program is the best on the West Coast. I don't think it's close. So I have full faith that those guys are going to turn him into the full athlete he can be. But I think Caleb is going to be one of those guys that down the road GCU fans are going to be very happy that we took our time to go.
One random thing about him, someone pointed this out on the message board. You're not going to believe this. So he's like 6'10", right?
Yep.
I'm sitting like, man, this guy could be like an unbelievable defender. Do you know he didn't have one block last year?
Yeah.
He's going to get one. You got to be on him, and you got to say that first game he's got to have like 3. Because I'm like, he might be an incredible defender. He just did get a block somehow.
The thing is that he's much more athletic than you would probably know. Like I said, we are blessed to have Jordan Jackson and Chris Elliott. They tend to turn guys into athletes that they weren't before they got here. I don't know how. I don't know what they do. Jack has like another type of a calf raise that nobody else in America has or something. But as Caleb continues to grow, like his kid is, I'm saying like to go from 6'5" to 6'10" in a 2-year span, his body is still figuring itself out, right? For him to have the coordination he has and to have the work ethic he has and want to be a part of this as bad as he does, once his body slows down and he's able to catch up to where he wants to be, who knows how tall he can end up being. But with the skill set he has and the work ethic he has, just like the other guys, the Brian Moores, the Jaden Henleys, the Dusty Stromers, I really like this group, and nothing is guaranteed. Nothing matters. So the first ball comes out and is tossed in the air. But if they stick to what they've shown us this summer, we'll have a a great fight together for the next 9 months.
Yeah, man, we're closer than you think.
Right.
I mean, we're mid-July as we're recording this.
We're here. Season is here.
It's coming. So this is
here.
No more waiting for college basketball. It's almost here, so we're excited for it.
Yes,
well,
sir.
Mark, thank you so much for sitting down with us. We really, really appreciate it. I know the fans are going to love this one. So thanks for your time.
Having me, man. Appreciate you.
Yeah, cheers.
All right, thanks, man.